Hello everybody, my name is Jennifer Maker. Today I am showing you how to design, write, and cut pantry labels with a Cricut cutting machine on the Great Maker Show and Tell. So I recently renovated my kitchen with beautiful glass front cabinets, and I really want to put some canisters and jars in there. But the thing is, I need to label them because otherwise the ingredients are just way too hard to tell apart. I had been using my Brother P-Touch labeler, but those labels are just not very pretty or really big enough to read from a distance. So I am going to use my Cricut to create my own custom pantry labels that look good and are easy to read. And I'm going to show you how to do it too. So for this project, you want either full sheet label paper like this, or the Cricut Smart Label writable vinyl on a roll. Now I prefer the Smart Label vinyls look and feel, and I think it sticks better to surfaces too. You also need some canisters and jars to label. I'm using the OXO Pop Containers as well as mason jars in various sizes. Now if you use mason jars, look for ones with smooth sides, as your labels will stick to those so much better than those with the raised designs. You know the ones I'm talking about. Now I'm going to use my Cricut cutting machines to cut and write my pantry labels. You can make these on any Cricut, but in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make them on a Cricut Joy and on a Cricut Maker, but an Explorer would also do. The advantage to using the Cricut Joy is that you can use the Smart Label material without a mat, and it's easier to take the Cricut right into the kitchen with you as you label all your stuff and don't have to keep making trips back and forth. Oh, and you need a pen for your labels too. I am using a black fine point Cricut pen, which is a 0.4 millimeter tip. The size of the pen tip matters if you use my designs. Your Cricut can write and to decorate your pantry labels with the pen right in the machine, and they look fabulous. It goes right in here. Now last but not least, you need a design for your pantry labels. It can be simple or fancy. It's completely up to you. I'm going to show you how to make 3 different styles: a super easy simple label, a big easy to read bold label like this, and a fancy script label that's totally on trend. I'll even show you my personal tricks for getting the Cricut pen to fill in the fonts for bolder and more beautiful labels. So let me start by showing you how to design pantry labels that suit your style and decor. Step 1, design your pantry labels. Here we are in Cricut Design Space, which is the design software that you'll use for your Cricut Joy, Cricut Explorer, or Cricut Maker. Click on New Project over here on the left. I'm going to show you how to make 3 different pantry label styles. The first will be simple, the second is bold, and the third is fancy. Let's start with the simple one. For every pantry label that we make, we need 2 basic things: a shape for the label and the writing itself, the label that we put onto it. To begin, let's get a shape. Click on Shapes over here on the left, and you can click a circle, for example, and there we have a shape. That's pretty easy. Now let's make this white, just because most our labels are white, right? And that just helps us visualize it. So we go up to this box up here while the circle is selected, and we click on the white square. So now we have a box. Now it's important that you make your label the right size for your container. For example, I know that a 2-inch circle is the right size for my container. So to change the size, we go to the top here under size, and we just select the numbers, and we change it from whatever it is to whatever we want it to be. So I'm going to type in 2 and press return, and it resizes for me. And I'm going to use these buttons down here to make this a little larger so that we can see what we're doing. Just the view, not the actual circle. So here we have a circle, which is great, but we need to get a label onto it, don't we? So the simplest way to do this is to click on text right over here on the left, and a box comes up that says add text here, and we're going to type in a name for our first ingredient. So flour. So that's too big, so we're going to use this resize handle here and click and drag it until it's like closer to the right size, and click and drag it into position. Now, very important, we need to tell the Cricut that we want to use the pen to write this label on our pantry label. We need to actually change it from cut, which is the default, to draw. So everything by default is cut, and that's important to understand. Whenever you want to draw something, you need to change it to draw. So with the word selected, go up to the line type menu here at the top and choose draw, just like this. Okay, now this is the way that it will write on your label. Perhaps you think that this is amazing, and if you do, then you're almost ready to go. All you have to do is select both your shape and your word, both of them, so you can see they're both selected over here, and then click attach. If you don't do this, the word won't actually appear on your label. Okay, so if this is all you want and you love this, then this is it. You're good to go. Just make sure that you have changed your label name to draw, your shape is cut, and you have them attached. And you can see right here, attach. All right. All right, so but what if you want to change the way that this font looks? What if you don't like this bubble letter effect? A lot of people don't. They want it to look like it's actually written with a pen that you might have done that looks nice and not some weird outline. You can do this, and you use a writing font to do this. So let's first detach everything so we can get to our word here. So now I've selected our name. And I'm going to go up and we're going to choose a different font. So I'm going to go to the font menu. And right now it's Cricut Sans. It generally defaults to that. And over here under filter on the right side, I'm going to select writing. And this will show me only fonts that have a writing style, which means that it will just be a single line or something similar to that that actually looks like writing. And if you don't have Cricut Access, a lot of them will be an extra cost, but there is one, and I believe it's actually Cricut Sans. It's just the writing version of it. So if you have access, anything with an A means that it's included in Cricut Access. All right, so the way that you access the writing font is you go to Style at the top of the screen, and you choose Writing. So if you don't choose Writing, you're not getting the writing font. And there we go. Do you see how different that looks? It's a lot different. So let's make sure that everything is aligned. So I've selected both the label shape and the word. I'm going to go to the align menu, and I'm going to click center, and that's going to align both my ingredient name inside my circle. And then I'm going to attach again. Make sure you have a draw layer and a cut layer. And this, my friends, is a simple pantry label. You can make them in any of the writing fonts, any of the fonts. You get to choose what you want, and you can go crazy and make them for everything. So we're going to set this one aside and move on to the next label. I'll set this over here just so it's out of our way. Okay, so our next label is a bold font. This font is not particularly bold. And if you have a pantry like I do that is not well lit and is really rather small, it's difficult to see a delicate font like this in your pantry. And you don't want to be grabbing the flour when you really wanted the cornmeal, right? That's totally not going to taste very good. So there is a way to make a bolder font, and let me show you how to do that. So again, we will make a shape. And this time I will just choose a square. And if you don't like having boring shapes like this, there's alternatives. If you go to images and you click on cartridges, there's several cartridges here. Labels with a flourish line, labels with decorative lines, dotted lines, simple lines, slash lines. All of these filled with label shapes and styles, right? So lots of labels here. So we could pick this one. And I have these labels are part of Cricut Access, and just so everyone knows, it's called Simple Labels. All right, so I'm going to choose this one. We'll use this one instead. So I'll go ahead and delete this square. So I know that for my my containers, my larger containers, I want them to be about 4 inches. And it's also important to note that the Cricut Joy, like the maximum size if you're going to use label paper is 4 1/4 inches, I believe. Right, 4 1/4 inches. So let's just make these 4 inches wide. So I'm just selecting the size up there at the top and changing it to 4. So there we go, 4 inches. Nice big label. It doesn't matter what color it is, only that you can see it. All right, so now we need a font, and we need a bold font. So I'm going to click on text, And I'm going to write my ingredient name. We're just going to use the same one so we can compare it. It's nice and easy. So here's the word flour. It's not bold, but there are options. And I'm going to use a font that I've downloaded online that has a fill that goes with it. And it's called Carte Blanche. And we have to change this filter so it says My Fonts. Let's close this and do this again. Filter, take off writing. There we go. You want to, if ever you can't find your fonts, make sure your filters, you can click on clear filters like this. You can click on system and that will show your fonts that you've uploaded. I have a whole tutorial on how to find fonts and upload fonts to Cricut Design Space on both the desktop, laptop, and on the iOS version of Cricut Design Space. So this is the font I want, and it's called DK Carte Blanche, and I'm going to change it to that. And you can see right away that this is going to be an amazingly awesome bold font. Right now it's set to cut. Okay, so make sure that we change this to draw. Line type menu. There we go. So this is what it will look like when it draws, because it's filled in with these sort of hash marks. And this is fairly unusual. There are maybe a dozen fonts that have a sort of style like this. There's not a lot, and I don't know of any really that are part of Cricut Access currently. If you want this font, it's over at dafont.com. So we have this set to draw. We have our label. Let's select both layers and go to Align and choose Center just like before, and then attach them. There we go. So now our bold pantry label is ready to go. So let's move this over with this one here. Now, what about a fancy label? So I have got you covered there. I have actually designed a whole bunch of things for you so that you can make labels that are bold and beautiful. So they are on my blog. My blog is located at jennifermaker.com, and these are free, just so that's really clear. My designs are always free. And you go to the red bar at the top of the screen and you click on Enter the Library. And once you're in the library, you can browse, but I have a rather long list of free files, and it can get a little hard to find things, I will admit. So the best thing to do is to search the page. That would be typing on your keyboard, Command F on the Mac or Control F on Windows. So here's the little window that comes up, and I'm going to type the word pantry. And it shows up right there, highlighted for me, and all I have to do is click this file and it downloads. And once it's downloaded, I can open it up, and here are all the files. And I have label shapes, and I have penned pantry labels. So let's start with the shapes, and you want the SVG file whenever you upload. Now don't double click this. That will not help you. Instead, go to Cricut Design Space, click on Upload, Upload Images, and Browse, and then go find the file that you downloaded. So here's my downloads folder. Here's the file I downloaded, and here is the label shapes SVG file. It says SVG right in the file name. If ever you can't see it, make sure that your window is expanded all the way so you can see the full file name. All right, I'm going to click that, and we're going to open it up. You can see all the shapes over here. I have lots of them. And we select it, and then we click Insert Images to put it onto our canvas. And now I'm going to make the canvas smaller so we can see all of these lovely shapes. There's lots of shapes here. I am going to choose, I have actually a couple different ways to do this. I'm going to first ungroup using this icon in the upper right so that the labels in here are separated and can be selected individually. And I am going to use this one here to show you how you can make a really cool border. And I am going to use this one here to show you how we do the pretty penned font. And I'll go ahead and just group these up and hide them for now. We don't need to worry about. Here's the group, and we just click the I to hide them since we're not working with them. Now I want to go back so I can see my files much better. Okay, so here's one fancy label, and here's the other one. This one's not quite fancy yet. All right, so for this first one here, I made a pretty border. Now again, this needs to be done with a I mean, technically you could cut it right out of this label if you wanted to, but I think it looks a lot prettier when it's penned. So we need to change this from cut to draw, and it looks like that. And you can even change the color, because I like to do these in teal. So there it is in teal. And then we can put a name right in the middle. I mean, we can take one of these, or we can make a new one. Let's use one of Cricut's other writing fonts. So I'm going to type flower, and we're going to go up to the font menu. And again, we click on filter. Let's first click the X to get rid of our search result, and click on filter and click clear filters just to be sure, and then click writing. And these are all of the writing fonts that are available, and there's lots and lots of choices here. A lot of good ones for labels would be things like Be Mine. I mean, sometimes like this is not what your writing font will look like. So sometimes you just have to experiment and see what looks good on your font. And this is kind of the fun of designing a label and working with Design Space. You will spend way more time designing your labels than you will actually cutting them out. That's the easy part, actually. I know it was for me. So here's a font that is cute. It's called Dandelion. Let's go ahead and change that to that so we can see what it looks like. I'm going to click and drag it over on top of our label and use a resize handle to make it the right size. And I want to make sure that it's draw, which it is selected as draw, and let's change it to the same pen color as our outline, which was a gel teal, because that will be much more efficient. And yeah, that looks awesome, I think. So just like before, we need to select everything. So we can just click and drag a selection box around it like this, or you can actually use click the layers over on the right if you want, and then click attach. So now we have a fancy label that will make this pretty leaf border around it and the word flower. All right, now let me show you my favorite one. And this uses another file that I created. So we're going to upload it. Click on upload, upload image, and browse, and look for the Pantry Labels pinned SVG file and click open. Now this is a big image, and you're going to get a warning at the top that says, image is large, please be patient. It's possible that if you have a slow computer, it could take a long time, so just be patient. Once it's uploaded, you'll see it over here, and then click save. Again, be patient. It's uploading. It's about, I think it's 3 megabytes, and it has to process all of that data. So just be patient and let it upload. So once it's uploaded, click it. So it's selected with the green outline, and then click insert images. And give it some time to load onto your screen. There we go. They're so pretty. So these are all SVG files that I have made, and these all use the pen font, and they fill in to make this nice, beautiful, bold script font. So once they upload, we need to ungroup them so that we can select each one individually. And let's click and drag flower over to our label, just like this. And I'm going to zoom in so that we can see that. Now, remember what I said earlier in that files default to cut. So if you look up here at the line type menu, it says cut. You do not want to cut this. That would be zero fun, and it will not look good at all. You want to draw it. So you click on draw, and you'll note it doesn't change to bubble letters. It stays looking like this. And that's the magic of this SVG file that I designed. There are 55 labels in this file. I'm hoping that I've got most of your pantry items. Of course, not all. For example, some people have wheat flour and cake flour and white flour. So that's okay. Let me show you what to do. So here is flour, and we're going to click on text again, and we're going to type cake. All right, so here's the word cake, and I'll just kind of give myself some space. Okay, so this font, it doesn't look so good. These two do not go together. They're both just too fancy. I recommend a much simpler font. Let's go to the font menu, and let's see, nice simple font. Cricut Sans is probably fine, and Cricut Sans is free. So let's just go select that. Cricut Sans, okay. And let's do all caps actually, instead of lowercase. Let's say cake, like this. Yeah, I like this better. And then we're going to use our resize handle to make it a much more appropriate size. And click and drag this right here. And make sure it says draw, which it does. Isn't that awesome, guys? I think it's super cute. So we have our flower layer, which is set to draw. And we have our descriptive word, which of course you don't have to have if you only use one type of flower. And we have our fancy label. So again, we select everything for that one label, just one label at a time, and we click attach. So we now have 4 labels. We have our simple basic label. We have, move this out of the way, we have our bold label, and we have 2 fancy labels. Yeah, aren't these cool? Let's make the backgrounds all the same on these so that the Cricut understands that we want to cut them all out of the same paper. That's important to do. So let's find the background, find the label shape of each one. So I'm going to select it, and then over on the right we'll see all the layers highlighted. Click on just the one label, the label shape, and go up to the color menu and choose white. White's good because we're going to cut these out on white. Do the same thing for each of the other ones. Find the label shape, click on it, change the color to white, and again over here, here is the label shape, and change it to white. And since we're going to do these all on one sheet, or at least attempt to, we're going to change this, the color of the ink. We want it to match the others, so we're going to change it back to black, not gel, fine point black. And this is an important distinction. My flower font here is designed specifically to work with the fine point tip pen, the 0.4 millimeter pen, that if you go bigger, I can't guarantee that it's going to look so great. It might fill in a lot more. It might be very bold, and you might lose some of the detail. So I recommend you stick with the fine point. Something else that's important to note, you'll notice that I didn't change the size of the flower once it uploaded, right? This fancy one. You want to keep it the same size, roughly. You could go a little smaller or a little bigger, but not a lot more without losing some of the cool filled in bits, right? So just keep that in mind. It's designed specifically for pantry labels. And of course, I know you guys are going to ask me, well, what if I want to make my own that you haven't thought of? I used a font to create these. It's called Shellian Script, and I bought it online from Font Bundles. I have a commercial license for it. And let's go change it to that. So clear our filters. Type in Shellian. Here it is right here. Let's fix this letter spacing. It drives me nuts. That's not it. There we go. That's much closer. Actually, let's move this down a little bit. Okay. So it's important to understand that when we change this to draw, it's not going to look like what I have designed. It's going to look like this, bubble letters, right? And of course we can get rid of the touching parts by just welding it. And that looks a little bit better, but it's not the same as this, right? Now I did this using by creating an SVG in Adobe Illustrator. So you are welcome to, if you know how to make SVGs and how to fill things in, you're welcome to do that in Inkscape or Illustrator, any kind of like vector program that can output an SVG. But you're not going to get the same effect as me, just so that's clear. But maybe you just want to like cut it out, or maybe you want to fill it in by hand. Maybe you love to color. In that case, feel free to just do the bubble letters and fill them in with marker or something fun like that. All right, so I think now we are ready to try making these. Step 3, cut and write your pantry labels. It's time to actually make these pantry labels that we've designed. So when you're ready to go, you just click Make It up in the upper right corner, and it sends it to your preview mat. Now I've got this currently set to my maker, which you can see up here in the corner, and this is what my preview mat will look like. always check that you have a draw layer and a cut layer, and there's not other mats for other colors or anything like that. You can have multiple mats if you're doing a lot of labels, but they should all be the same, draw and cut on the same color of material, just like we see here. And I'm going to rearrange these just a bit. I'm going to move the simple one over here and then put the bold one here, and then this one here and this one here, just so that we can see them in order. After we've finished, I'm going to click continue, and the maker process is the same for the explore process. There's no difference in how this will work. So our machine is connected. Always make sure it's turned on and it's near your computer. So our first step is to put these onto label paper. So click on browse all materials, and we're going to search for the best way to find this is adhesive, paper adhesive backed, and click done. And your pressure is fine the way it is. So it tells you what to do. Load the black pen into clamp A, put your fine point blade in clamp B, and then load the mat and press the load button. So now let's prepare the same thing but for the Joy. I have both machines connected so that we can do them together. So here's the exact same project, and I've set this one to the Joy. So we're going to go ahead, the same thing, and click that green Make It button in the upper right hand corner. Now the Joy asks us how we're going to load our materials in. Since we're doing label paper and that's not a smart material, we're going to say on the mat. So this is for any material. And then we click on mat and then click done. It gives us this preview mat. And again, we need to double check that we have everything on the same color and it says draw and cut. And this looks good, but we can change our material size from 4.5 by 6.5 to 4.5 by 12 because we have a longer mat. And I want to do the exact same thing I did before and put these into order just so that it's easier for us to look at how they did in the order that we made them. So here's simple, bold, and fancy. There we go. So we click continue for the Joy, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to look for the right material. Now the Joy does not have the same material available, so what I found that works best for label paper is actually to use premium vinyl. And so that is right here. And go ahead and click done. And I'm setting my pressure to less because it's just a little stronger than I need. So we have our maker all ready to go, and we have our Joy all ready to go. First, for fun, we're going to do these at the exact same time so you can see how it works. Let's switch over to my work area and get our mats loaded up. All right, so I've got everything all set up and ready to go. Here is my maker. If you don't have a maker, you can use an Explorer for this tutorial as well. And here's my Joy, they're both plugged in and ready to go. Here are my materials and my mats. The pens that we'll use for the Cricut Maker and Explorer are these pens that say Cricut Explorer on them. They also work for the Maker. We want the 0.4 tip pen. That's important for this tutorial. The color does not matter, just the size. So we're going to go ahead and take that out. And then for the Cricut Joy, we're going to use their pens. So the Cricut Joy is smaller, and that means it has smaller mat, smaller materials, smaller pens, and even a smaller blade. So everything is a little bit smaller. So we're going to use the same size, tip size though. So it's still a 0.4 millimeter fine point pen, and that will be our pen. Again, color is not that important. All right, so that's our pen. Now for the actual material, we're going to try two different ways. We're going to try just doing standard label paper to see how that works. We'll do that in both the Maker and the Joy. And then we'll try the Smart Label Writable vinyl, which is really cool. And then we'll compare and see which one really works the best. And one other option that I won't be showing you, but that you can consider, is glossy sticker paper. So this is just white matte, and this is glossy sticker. So paper. If you want your pantry labels to be see-through, this is an option that you can use. So it'll be clear, okay? But we're going to focus on, right now, we're going to focus on our full white label paper. All right, so we have our two mats, and it's important to note that these mats are specific to each machine. You have to use the 12 by 12 or 12 by 24 in the Explorer Maker, and you need to use 4.5 inch wide mat or no matte if you're using a smart material like the Smart Vinyl. This does not need a matte, which you will see in a minute. So it does. They do have some smaller mats, I believe. Gosh, I can't remember. For the cards, yeah. Okay, here we go. These are ready to go. So we have our label paper on our mats. We have our pens ready. So Design Space tells us to load the black pen into the clamp. So we're going to do that for both the machines. Now, here's an important tip. Before you put your pen into your machines, make sure that it's primed. And by that, I mean make sure the ink is flowing. So we'll just take a scrap piece of paper and we'll literally just write with it. And it's not uncommon for it to kind of start out a little bit light. And as we write, it gets darker. Right? So that looks fine to me there. Okay. And we'll go ahead and put this into the maker. So we open the clamp and put it into the maker until it clicks. Sometimes it doesn't click, but you definitely want this little arrow that you see here to be meeting the top of your pen adapter. So hear the click there, and then close the clamp. And then put the cap on your pen so that it doesn't get lost. So let's prime the Joy pen as well. And this one looks good to go. No doubt it is a newer pen. Just want to make sure that it's about the same, and it looks about the same to me. So let's open up the Cricut Joy. You need to take out the blade because it has one clamp. Put in our pen. It will be feel a little bit loose. It doesn't lock in the same way. This is fine. You just close the clamp, just like this, and put your cap on. All right, so that's ready to go. All right, so now we're ready to load our mats into our machines. So to load the Maker or the Explorer, you press it against the rollers and press the load button. The Joy loads differently as you want to put it in, but as you approach the rollers, it grabs it for you. There's no button, there's no load or unload button. Just like that. Isn't that cool? All right. So let's hop back over to Cricut Design Space. So our maker's ready to go. And all we have to do is press the flashing button, and our Joy is ready to go. And in this case, we actually press the green button on the screen. So I'm going to do these together at the same time so we can watch them. Ready, set, go. Now the Joy prompts us to put the blade in. So we remove the pen, put the blade in, and press go on the screen. And both machines cut out our labels for us. So they've written our labels and now they're cutting them out. And there we go, they finish basically within seconds of each other. So to unload the Maker or the Explorer, you press the flashing unload button. And to unload the Joy, you actually press the unload button on the screen. And it unloads for you. And there we go. These look wonderful. So here are our labels. Now let's take a closer look at the one that filled in with our pen. Doesn't that look excellent? It did a great job. It's very bold and vibrant. The label on the left, penned by the Maker, does look a little lighter than the one penned by the Joy. I'm not sure if it's because the pen is perhaps a little older or the Joy's marker is better, but you probably wouldn't notice unless you were comparing them side by side. I think they look really amazing. All right, so those are our labels made with label paper. Let's take them off the mat. Always flip your mat over to peel your material away. Now let's take a look at the Smart Label material that's available for the Joy. This is a writable vinyl, and you don't need a mat for it. It's really cool. This is my first time using it. This is 5.5 inches by 48 inches long. This is writable vinyl, which I have never seen before. So this is really rather exciting. And you can see if you look at the edges, if I hold it up in the light and shine it, it doesn't come quite to the edge. And this is where the rollers are going to bring it in on the edge. All we have to do is unroll it just enough to get, you see? Now the Cricut Joy is auto feeding it and straightening it as it does so. I actually have put it in just slightly crooked initially, and it fixed that for me, which was really cool. That's it. That's all we had to do, and now we're ready to go ahead and write. All right, so let's go back to Cricut Design Space and make sure that we've changed our material to be the Smart Vinyl. So to do that, we're going to click on this material line again, and let's see, is it up here? Smart Label Writable Vinyl. It's right here. So, and we want to use the default pressure. We're going to put the black pen in. So here's our pen. And remember, it doesn't lock in initially. You have to close the clamp. Now there's a note here, gel pens and metallic markers are not recommended for this material, so just sticking with the regular fine point pen is the right choice. And everything looks great, and it's time for us to go ahead and click go. All right, and we need to put in our fine point blade into our Joy. So we take out the pen, put in the blade, close the clamp, and press go on our screen. And it's complete, and we press unload. So there we go. We have labels. Let's take a closer look at these. The ink is beautiful, I have to say. First of all, that's the biggest difference I can see right away, is they just look lovely. Let's compare these to the ones that we did in the label paper earlier. So you can see a difference right away in the vibrancy of the ink, right? So putting it on this label, this writable vinyl, definitely makes the ink really stand out. So these are very pretty. Now I know what you're thinking. Can we use the Smart Label writable vinyl on our Explore or Maker cutting mats? Well, you know I love to test things, so we're going to find out right now. All right, so here we have the Smart Label writable vinyl, and we want to put on 9 inches. Now, it's important to note that because there is this margin here right along the edges of both sides where the vinyl doesn't come all the way over, you need to position it so that either your labels are moved over or you have this section moved over a bit so that there's vinyl right at the edge. Okay, so we'll load up our maker. We're going to put in our pen, close the clamp, put this on, everything looks good. Moment of truth. We should just go ahead and do this. Okay, so we go back to Cricut Design Space. Things look good. Let's go ahead and press the button. All right, that finished. And it looks like it did it. And it looks pretty awesome, actually. Let's take a closer look at this. So comparing the Smart Label on the maker on the left here with the Smart Label made on the Joy on the right, I think the maker, the ink isn't quite as bold as it is on the Joy, but otherwise they look really good. So it looks like you could use your Explorer or Maker with the Smart Vinyl too. Step 4, apply your pantry labels to your containers and jars. Putting your pantry labels on your containers and jars is the easiest step. First, wipe down any surface you want to apply your pantry labels to with rubbing alcohol and a lint-free cloth or wipe such as a coffee filter. This is going to help your label apply and stay stuck better. Now carefully peel the label off the backing and place it on your container as straight as you can. If you use label paper, you'll probably be able to reposition it if you get it on crooked, but you will not be able to reposition the Smart Label very easily. If you're at all concerned about it, just measure and mark with a pen that will wipe off easily. Now here's an important note. The Smart Vinyl can be peeled up from the backing with a finger, just as I'm doing here, but if you find it hard to pull up, simply weed the vinyl around the label first. And I definitely recommend that you weed first for any intricately cut labels on the Smart Label, as otherwise your label may want to tear at the corners as you peel it up. And I have a tip for you. When you place your Smart Vinyl on a container, start at one edge and smooth across from the edge to the other edge. This is going to help you avoid wrinkles and bubbles. So here's the question I have, and maybe you have as well. Which one of these is better? Is it the label paper or the Smart Label writable vinyl? Let's compare the two. First, stickiness. The Smart Label vinyl sticks way better to containers than label paper. After only a few days, the label paper was already starting to lift off my jars, which was really sad. So if you use label paper, you're going to need to reinforce them with extra tape or glue. But you don't have to do that with the Smart Label vinyl. Ink application. The ink looks quite a bit more bold and vibrant on the Smart Label vinyl than it does on the label paper. So that's another point in the favor of Smart Label. How about look and feel? I definitely preferred the glossy white and smooth finish of the Smart Label vinyl to the matte finish of the label paper. And smudging. So the ink is smudge proof on the Smart Vinyl immediately after writing, whereas you need to give the label paper a bit more time for the ink to dry, so you'll want to be careful and not touch it in the beginning. Eventually, both the label paper and the Smart Vinyl are smudge proof. Now, it's important to note that neither of these is washable. If you wash it, the ink will run. But because the Smart Vinyl surface is glossy, you can wipe cocoa dust and greasy fingers off with a dry cloth on the Smart Vinyl labels a whole lot easier than you could wipe it off on the plain label paper, which might soak that dust or that grease right up. Now, if you think you'll be touching your containers often with damp or wet hands and don't want to risk your ink running, just spray them with a clear acrylic spray sealer a few times. You'll want to wait about 5 to 10 minutes between coats. I have sprayed labels in the past and that works really quite well. And it protects the ink. Note that you'll probably want to weed the excess vinyl from your Smart Vinyl before you spray it, as otherwise it might be hard to peel up your label. But when I look at all the factors between the label paper and the Smart Vinyl definitely comes out ahead, and that's what I'll be doing all of my pantry labels in. I am really pleased with how my pantry label designs and tests have turned out. Though I can't decide if I like the scalloped labels or the fancy script labels best. I'll just have to use them both. And now that I've tried making them on different Cricuts and with different materials, I know what is going to work best for me. My vote is definitely for the Smart Label vinyl material, and I'm going to use the Cricut Joy because I can go matte-less and that's easier, and I can take it right into my kitchen and it's going to be so much more efficient. I'm really impressed with this little thing. I do hope you found this tutorial helpful. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know what questions that you might have about making your own pantry labels with your Cricut. Ask a question in the comments below this video, or better yet, come on over to my fabulous Cricut Crafters Facebook group at jennifermaker.com/CricutCrafters. If you don't yet have a Cricut to cut out your own labels, I'm holding a giveaway for a Cricut cutting machine. Yes, that's right. You can enter for the chance to win your own Cricut. Get all the giveaway details over at jennifermaker.com/CricutGiveaway. And that's it for today. Do you have an idea for a future tutorial that you'd like me to do? If you can tell me what you want to make, I can show you how to make it. Until next time, this is Jennifer Maker reminding you to craft the life you love.